This project is a cooperative production of the Ken Heckler Documentary Project, LLC, and Marshall University, being presented with financial assistance from the West Virginia Humanities Council, a state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Many people, both on the labor side and on the management side, have written me with threats that they would get me at the next election unless I supported their point of view. I'm not afraid. You know, I love to teach, and I love to write, and there are lots of things that I could be doing besides holding public office. But a public official must live with himself and his conscience.
It's extremely rare to have one person in public life who will actually act out of conviction and courage, and sometimes go against his own culture and go against his own people. And Ken Heckler has done that time and time and time again. Stood up for what he believed in, stood up for justice.
Presented the Harry S. Truman Award for Public Service in 2002, Ken Heckler spent a lifetime establishing a formidable reputation through his efforts on behalf of ordinary people. His passionate pursuit of justice sprang from his experience as a political science professor and combat historian, as a researcher for Presidents Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman, and as a U.S. Congressman and West Virginia Secretary of State. The philosophies, decisions, and events shaping Ken Heckler's life offer a detailed study in character and the merits and challenges of politics and public service.
I must say, from my experience, it's the politicians that have given politics a bad name by just wanting to hold office and wanting to get reelected rather than using their office as what Theodore Roosevelt described as a bully pulpit to try to make sure that the principles of justice get carried forward.
I don't see how we can effectively teach in our schools the principles of democracy and then turn around and practice corruption at the polls.
You can probably consider an eccentricity for someone in positions like he has been to not to underestimate his constituents. I think he has always respected the ability of his constituents to think analytically, and he expects them to.
Building a missile today or putting a man in space tomorrow through one of these space capsules isn't nearly as important as providing the education which will provide the brains and the leadership tomorrow.
Besides securing passage to Cape Canaveral for science teachers in his congressional district, Ken Heckler determined to provide West Virginians memorable and worthwhile educational opportunities.
Here in Washington with me this week are two of the winners of the Week in Washington contest. Diane, what did you have to do in order to win this contest?
Well, I wrote an essay on why I would like to work in my congressman's office.
Congressman Heckler established a program to enable high school students to spend a week of their summer vacation in the nation's capital.
Senator Symington, do you feel that biological warfare will be used if there is another war?
He basically wanted 2 juniors from every high school in the district, and all their expenses would be paid up and back, and they would have an opportunity to interact with his staff, to go to committee meetings that he was on, to attend sessions of the House and the Senate, to go to important events. They all had to write papers on it and reports. They'd go back to their school as seniors to instill in the other classmen what they saw, what they learned, what they had a chance to do.
It was in celebration of the passing of the Medicare bill. I was talking to Senator Case of New Jersey and James Roosevelt when a little man, a little Italian fellow with an accordion came up and started playing Happy Birthday to me. And so Mr. Roosevelt and Senator Case both sang to me. And So we ate shrimp cocktail and drank Coke on the rocks and hobnobbed with all the rich people.
Through the Week in Washington program, Spencer High School student Barbara Carpenter entered a world of seemingly endless possibilities.
I actually think it changed my whole life because it gave me a look at government. It gave me an interest in government.
Mr. Kennedy, do you feel congressional committees' rights of investigation have been abused? And do you think there's a need for corrective legislation?
I think on occasion that there have been.
I was this low-income high school kid, probably not going to go to college, and meeting people and having the opportunity to be in Ken's office. If he was called for a vote, to go on the floor, it was just such an exciting week.
Whether as chief counsel or attorney general, Robert Kennedy and his brother John, whether U.S. Senator or President of the United States, were among the who's who of Washington who made time for Congressman Heckler and the people of West Virginia.
This house behind you is identified with the great moments in American history. And one of the greatest moments in American history was the birth of West Virginia in an entirely different world, but a world which still carries with it the imprint of the struggles which brought freedom to West Virginia.
There was a new spirit in the 1960s which was very well symbolized by President Kennedy's wonderful phrase, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." It inspired a whole generation of young people to participate, to correct injustices.
As the civil rights movement of the 1960s took shape in Huntington, West Virginia, activist Phil Carter drew inspiration from Congressman Ken Heckler. Carter, a Marshall University basketball player, spent a summer on Heckler's Washington staff and came to appreciate Heckler's resolve in the face of daunting opposition.
Ken Heckler was always this stately, friendly, smiling, courteous person who really didn't say that much, but his presence made you feel comfortable to continue on your own. There was nothing like the shock of a cattle prod in your ribs to make you think twice. Do we really want to go back there again on principle? But his presence encouraged you to do that.
Following the deaths of two voters' rights advocates at the hands of police and townspeople in Selma, Alabama, Congressman Heckler joined Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and hundreds marching to the state capitol in Montgomery on behalf of racial equality.
I'll always remember the statement of Martin Luther King that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so wherever it occurs, why, there's always room for a crusader, or I prefer to call a hellraiser.
Representative Heckler distinguished himself as the only member of Congress to participate in the March from Selma.